I'm Marvin Suit. I represented Fleming-Mason Energy for 60 years as of December 31st, 2020.
Marvin started the year before I was born.
Got his JD degree from UK the year I was born.
And in high school, I decided I wanted to become a lawyer. I made that known. Mr. McIntyre saw me one day and said, "Marvin," said, "when you get to be a lawyer, come back and join me. I'll need somebody to help me." In July of 1957, I had accepted a commission with the United States Air Force through ROTC. So I was assigned to Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri in the Judge Advocate General Corps. I served there for 2 years. When I came back to Flemingsburg, I had a wife, an 8-month-old son, and nowhere to live, so I lived with my mother. My father had died. And that same month, I went downtown to the office of Mr. McIntyre and told him I was back and ready to start practicing law. I say that I probably became an attorney for Fleming-Mason by default because since Mr. McIntyre was in failing health during 1960, I would go to the meetings, the board meetings for Fleming-Mason, although I had not been employed and was not paid anything during that first year. Mr. McIntyre died in December of 1960. As you can see, I have not had any private practice up to this point. So I learned the practice of law, of utility law, of rural utility law, cooperative law, sort of like back in the early days when boys wanted to learn to swim, they just threw them in the river and said, "Swim or die." And so that's about where I was when I first started with Fleming-Mason.
Marvin remembers how we were formed, you know, really the roots of how the organization came about and the true spirit of a cooperative form of business.
And so I read the bylaws over and over and over and over because every meeting you had to make sure you were abiding by the bylaws.
You know, if we were talking about policy, Marvin always had his bylaws in his folder, and he could quickly get you to where you needed to be in them.
And so one of the first things that I endeavored to do was to make sure that every new easement we acquired was signed by me as prepared by me, reviewed by me, and then recorded. And so for the last 60 years, I don't know of any easement we've ever obtained that hasn't been recorded because I threatened them with their life if they got an easement and didn't record it.
His dedication and his love of Fleming-Mason is unparalleled. His knowledge of the co-op world is unparalleled as well. I don't know anyone that I would trust with co-op knowledge than I would Marvin Suit. He grew up with it.
And so regulations have been rampant from the beginning. It seems like probably in the 70s there was more regulation than was necessary, but they felt like that was the way they'd have the power to control if necessary. But although these were hard times, they weren't to the point that it would cause them to sell out to the IOUs. They just met the requirements and moved on. It appears that rural people, perhaps, at least in this rural area, anytime a problem arises, they figure out how to handle it. They're very resilient people. We have not really had any major or even minor problems with the administration of Fleming-Mason. And I think it's attributable to the fact that the employees have always considered this a choice place to work. We've always had a very good working group of people in Fleming-Mason. And the same thing is true of the directors and the officers. They have not been in Fleming-Mason's activities to gain something from themselves personally. To every one of them, as they join Fleming-Mason, they have the interest of Fleming-Mason and the interest of the members at heart. And therefore, the co-op itself has stayed out of trouble from day one to this day.
He will always, no matter what the conversation, he was always very good at bringing us back around to saying what's best for our members.
And so the cooperative idea itself engenders that. These people associate themselves together. They cooperate to get the job done. They don't try to do it on their own.
He is truly interested in his community. I mean, his involvement doesn't stop with Fleming-Mason. It goes into civic organizations, church, water association. You know, a lot of people have leaned on Marvin for legal advice and for personal advice.
As I look back on this, I think, well, I guess I was a rural utility lawyer all those years, because from day one till the day I retire, which I say I'm never going to, until my lawyers say, you just stay home, you don't know anything anymore. That is probably my legacy, utilities.
During the 31 years that I've known Marvin, money has never been an issue. He has never considered this to be a job. It's just something that he loved to do.
It's sort of like family. I'm part and parcel of it. But I didn't realize it until I read all those minutes and saw how involved I have been.
Now, Marvin, in some ways, embodies Fleming-Mason.
Salt of the earth.
Integrity, knowledge, dedication.
Marvin is the essence of a true gentleman.
We say we became a lawyer to help other people. And I think that has been my goal from day one, and it still is now.